In progress.
Hey, Daddy, this is the man of the champions, Bill Fonzie Alfonso, giving a shout out to something else. Something else, Daddy.
This is Nickel Matala, Great Warrior Wolf, and you are listening to Something Else.
I'm Tony Cini, and you're listening to Something Else.
Hey everybody, it's Rich Palladino, the voice of New England, and you are listening to Something Else with Aria.
And welcome to episode number 216 of Something Else. Feast your ear holes on this week's episode as we take a look at NWA Total Nonstop Action, episode number 57 from August 6, 2003. My name is Aria, and joining me as always is the EO Sky to my Naomi. It's Cindy. Cindy, how the hell you doing today?
I'm doing fine, I guess.
You guess?
I mean, we got hard capped hours at work, so no overtime. So that's extra money out of my pocket. But at least I get to go home early on Friday.
That's the positive, you know?
Honestly, I'd rather have the additional $200 in my paycheck.
But by the way, to not to spoil how we do things on this show here, we're recording this 2 hours before SummerSlam Sunday, and 2 hours before SummerSlam Sunday is 1 hour into the 3-hour SummerSlam pre-show. Cindy, do you know how long 3 hours is? To give you some idea, I live about 200 miles away from the stadium. If I would have gotten in my car when the pre-show began and drove to the stadium, there is a decent chance I could have gotten to the stadium before the show started. That is how long a 3-hour pre-show is. It is a 200-mile car drive.
And 5 years ago, you know what we call a 3-hour pre-show?
Well, it was 5 years ago during the pandemic, so they were doing the pay-per-views in like 2 hours and 10 minutes, which
Yes, we'll just
was
say
not a
pay-per-view.
bad thing. Yeah. You know, I guess I don't know. I mean, I guess this is a good thing, to some degree at least. But 6 years ago, when you had a 3-hour pre-show, you'd have like 7 matches. So, you go from having way too much to 0. Because they don't do any dark matches anymore. They don't do any pre-show matches. It's just 3 hours of the people talking and watching the video packages that they're going to re-air later on during the show.
Well, that is if you have the ultimate tier for Peacock. Otherwise, you get commercials.
And I don't really know anymore, but I remember when I wasn't paying for it, the commercials really sucked. By the way, shout out to whoever that is at MetLife Stadium holding up a Josh Allen jersey. I see you. Anyway,
it's the best quarterback the state of New York's had in about 2 decades.
And that includes New Jersey. On to TNA, NWA TNA episode number 57, August 6, 2003. Now, yesterday or the day before, these days all run together anymore, you sent me a Facebook message basically saying the streak of good shows is over. And I'm like, oh, fuckity fuck. Now, I am not going to sit here and tell you that this week's show was as good as the last 3 weeks. I'm just going to say that this week's show does not suck, at least to the nth degree that, I expected when you're giving me that message.
It sucks about to the level of, I would say, a mid 1999 Nitro sucked.
Mid 1999 Nitro suck means that you're going to fall asleep halfway through. Um, I I guess technically I did. I fell asleep 40 minutes into the show, but that's because I was watching it at midnight. But anywho, let's tell you what is being reported this week in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. The Asylum was packed this week with 1,200 fans. However, over 70% of those 1,200 were in for free. So obviously they've given up on that whole trying to make people pay for tickets thing.
Yeah, they realized that wasn't working and it was too ingrained.
LA Park and Nassau are currently expected for the Super X Cup, which is scheduled currently to be taped on August 27th to air on September 3rd. And Lynn Sable, who is one of the guys who were responsible for clearing pay-per-view companies for TNA when they began, if you remember the bang-up job him and his team were doing, filed a motion in court due to the fact that he was awarded, and I quote, less than $2,000 in out-of-pocket court costs against TNA in a September 2002 court case and still has yet to be paid. So, you know, TNA, they haven't been paying their legal bills since day one. So from here, we press play on the show, and I got my copy. Cindy's apparently got two copies because she's somehow crazier than the rest of us.
Can I
And
explain the two copies thing first? So I have my own all right. So I have my own personal copies that me and my brother downloaded a decade ago because we tried to do this. And we gave up around October 2003 because Jarrett won the belt.
Spoiler alert.
We know it's happening.
Doesn't mean the people listening to us know it's happening.
Of course they know it's happening. It's early 2000s TNA. They know Jarrett winds up with the belt and does his whole awfulness with Hogan. It's one of the few clips they run into the ground.
It doesn't mean they know when it happened. They could have thought it happened in July of 2004.
Right when he was taping Hogan's Best?
Yeah. So?
No, they ain't getting that amount of credibility. You're going to get Johnny Fairplay. You're going to like it. Anyway, it started 5 minutes in. A friend of mine has the run on Plex, on her Plex server. It starts around the same time. So the only place that has the full open will be TNA Plus. You no longer have TNA Plus. You decide not to use those cuts anymore for your research because they edit out a bunch of stuff.
That's because I just didn't pay to renew it.
That was what, $9.99 a month?
I forgot how much I'd paid, but I paid for the whole year, from Rebellion of last year to Rebellion of this year, to include the pay-per-views. So whatever that cost, that's what it was.
Probably about $80.
So anyway, what I'm saying is the show opened and we are 5 minutes into the show, and America's Most Wanted and Simon and Swinger are having a rawhide strap match, which basically is straps are tied to the 4 ropes, and you could use them. Now, with that said, keeping in mind that we've watched every episode, typically they start with a 2 or 3 minute video package. We get the intro with Tenay and West. We still have to have the people physically come out and walk to the ring. What I'm saying is, I can't imagine we missed more than a minute or two of this match. Because we still got, about 11 or so minutes of this match. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, oh man, we can't properly rate this because we didn't see the whole match. I'm like, we may not saw the whole match, but we saw pretty damn close to it.
Yeah, we saw enough of it.
Now, of course, the match starts with a crazy four-way brawl that they break down into a tag team match. And then to make things wacky, because again, this is a strap match. You cannot be disqualified in a strap match. However, the referee has decided now is the time to enforce the rules. As Storm tried to get involved at one point and got physically manhandled by the referee. Storm got the pretend hot tag and immediately got cut off. Simon and Swinger hung Storm with a strap over the top rope while the referee restrained Harris this time. In theory, this should have gotten bigger heat, hanging Harris over the top rope like that. But the crowd didn't care any more than they were beforehand. Gilberti tried getting involved outside, but Storm sidestepped Simon doing a tope and got the hot tag to Harris. Swinger took a few shots with the straps and a four-way broke out. Gilberti got in the ring and took a spear from Harris and the double strappage from both of AMW. We had a stacked up stupid plex, which was exceptionally stupid, since Storm was essentially guaranteeing a superplex of his own partner here. Storm had the sharpshooter on Simon, and Swinger got a believable near fall with a chair to Storm. Storm super kicked the chair into Swinger's face for another 2 count. AW went for the death sentence, but Simon super kicked Storm as Harris came off the top rope. Finally, Storm pinned Diamond with a top rope assisted Scorpion death drop. After the match, Swinger and Gilberti attacked AMW and left them lying and stole the tag team belts. This was a pretty damn good little match here. And we're going to find out later that, even though we theoretically had a couple good matches to go, nothing could follow this.
Nope.
And this match got a 7.5 out of 10 from me.
It got a 6.5 out of 10 for me. The referee stuff in the middle just took me out of it. Like, it's supposed to be no disqualification. That's why Gilberti was interfering left and right. Yet, I don't know. That we've watched so many AMW matches that you could actually make a bingo card out of it. And this was bingo. Because some point of the match, AMW have to be stupid. And for a good chunk, they were stupid.
From here, we go outside to where Red Shirt Security refuses to allow Jerry Lynn into the arena. Personally, I think it's because he showed up 20 minutes late to the show, and they need to crack down on people being late to, the show. They do one show a week. It airs from 8 to 10 p.m. It's not that hard to show up on time to work. But apparently that's not why Lynn wasn't allowed in the building. Lynn isn't allowed in the building this week because Don Callis has suspended him for drop kicking a scale into Elix Skipper's face last week. Don came out and gave Lynn a list of rules he has to follow. Lynn crumpled up the rules and then threw his bags at the wall. I got to say, I don't know what happened between these two guys since the last ECW pay-per-view, because that ended with Lynn and Callis as a team. So, don't know what the hell happened there.
I think Lynn was refusing to be a doormat for people now, and I think back then he was a doormat for Don Callis and RVD and Rhino, who was also part of Don Callis's group.
He is the world heavyweight champion of the world. At least he was at the end of the show.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't Rhino the last ECW champion anyways? Like, he was champ, because he had the TV title.
Even though the title belt itself had been stolen. And,
Mm-hmm.
So from here, we get a brief video with each of the 4 participants in the next match putting themselves over. Danny Doring cared so much about this and was so prepared that he called one of his opponents Shane Matthews, which isn't that one of either Cool Hand Ange or Daddy Magic's name, or their old name? Like, I could be wrong. There was a wrestler named Shane Matthews, but that's not who's in this match.
He also was a quarterback for the Washington football team.
Good old Washington team of football. And you see, I was distracted because Rhea Ripley's on my TV screen, and well, Rhea Ripley's a very attractive young lady.
Oh, he's Daddy
All right.
Magic.
There we go. I knew it was one of them. So then we get Michael Shane versus Joey Matthews versus Danny Doring versus Shark Boy in, well, we find out later, a four-way elimination #1 contenders match. And this is, what, the second time in like 3 weeks that we have a multi-man elimination X Division match for the #1 contender status, where most of the people in the match either have never worked for the company or have never won a match in the company. I'm going to tell you right now, I looked it up, and I don't count Explosion because Explosion doesn't count. And I know because I had to put that out of the way because I know it's going to be the second thing out of your mouth here. So Explosion doesn't count because nobody watches Explosion. And the combined records of these four men on TNA pay-per-view is 1-15. The four people in a #1 contenders match have a combined record of 1-15. Now, Cindy, without looking it up, can you tell me who the one win was by and who they beat?
Shark Boy beating Mike Sanders, who's no longer in the company.
Yes, in the Loser Leaves Town match back on July 2nd. That is the one win the four of these people got here in TNA. And, you know, I get you could point out that Michael Shane just debuted, and he did, and Danny Doring hasn't had a match on the show, and he hasn't, which again, why are you in a #1 contenders match at this point? And Joey Matthews hasn't been on the show in a year when he and Christian York lost to the Dups. But, yeah. So these are the four best people we could get in a #1 contenders match. So I wrote that there really wasn't a lot to say about this match. It's possible the crowd would have been more into it if it was the opener, but they mostly sat on their hands until Shane did a flip outside the ring. Shark Boy blocked a middle rope Hurricane Rana by Matthews and used a Dead Sea Drop, but Doring stopped him from making the cover. Suddenly, Elix Skipper came out and took out Doring, Matthews, and Shark Boy before cutting a promo where he said he was mad that Jerry Lynn is not here and that he's going to beat up punks every week until Lynn faces him, which apparently means that Skipper does not watch the pre-tapes of this show because, you know, we found out why Lynn wasn't here. Now, again, we were in the middle of the match, and Elix Skipper came out and interfered and beat up 75% of the participants in this match. Elix Skipper then cut a promo, and Elix Skipper then walked to the back. And Cindy, tell me what happened after Elix Skipper walked to the back after interfering in this match and beating up 3 of the 4 participants.
The one that didn't get beat up won.
Specifically, the match continued. The match just continued. Plus, it's an elimination match, and, you know, okay, maybe we can't tell whose side Elix Skipper is on, but there's one person he did not beat up, and that person then should be disqualified. Am I overthinking this?
Maybe, but you're right.
That guy broke the rules, you know? And then Michael Shane pins Matthews with a super kick. He pins Doring with a super kick, and then has like a 30-second match with Shark Boy and pins him with a Fisherman's DDT. What was the point of Skipper coming out in the middle of this match? Now, I know that I sit here and I bitch when they have a match, and instead of just having a winner and a loser and everyone walking to the back, they have somebody walk out, attack people, and, you know, do all the shit. But you know something? Waiting until the end of the match and then having Elix Skipper come out and beat up all the losers and cutting his promo, I would have complained less. Because what the hell? Michael Shane, he hasn't really been established as anything, but he's not a heel. He's so, but he got a heel victory here.
It's serendipity, and it's becoming annoying already for Michael Shane. How much serendipitous bullshit has he gotten away with over the past 2 months that he's been with TNA?
Michael Shane's been here like 2 weeks.
Wasn't he like in a 6-man in June?
Nope.
I'll look it up. By the way, score 3 out of 10.
That's what I gave it. So now Scott Hudson's backstage with Eric Watts. Watts told Hudson to say to Watts cut off Hudson to say to not let him cut Hudson off. Watts said that tonight is the first time in TNA history that the NWA title is on the line in a cage match. I actually had to re-listen to that because the first time I heard it, I didn't hear him say in TNA history, so I just heard the first time the NWA title's on the line in a cage match. So I was ready to kick him in the nuts. Then he threatened to knock out Russo if Russo tried to touch him sexually. This is not going to be the dumbest thing we hear Eric Watts say in the next 2 weeks, by the way. Watts said that if Siaki, Legend, or Trinity interfere, then AJ loses the belt. And I'm like, why doesn't he add Russo to the list so we didn't have him at ringside either? And any thoughts on this tremendous promo here by Eric Watts?
Not really. It was your stereotypical Eric Watts promo, which isn't that good.
I can't believe you would say that Eric Watts isn't good. I thought he was the next fucking Ric Flair when it came to promos.
I mean, just look at his drop kick.
Tonight, my boy, if you hit the drop kick, you might finally become the champion. So
never hit that drop kick.
Nope. We are magically whisked away to the ring where Shane Douglas is in the ring complaining about Raven. The fans saw him pin Raven, and Douglas said that is why they call him the franchise. Just pointing out, he was the franchise for 10 years before he pinned Raven, so why was he called the franchise before now? Anyway, he said Raven was wondering, how could the franchise pin my ass 2 weeks in a row? Douglas said Raven is the last person to get his ass. He's not the last person to get his ass franchised. He's just the most recent. And he says this has nothing to do with the new church, Jim Mitchell, Brian Lee, or Slash. Douglas had invited Raven to dance with the devil and get his ass franchised. Raven's music played, and he came through the crowd with a body bag for a fight. Raven hit the Raven Effect DDT and prepared the body bag when Jim Mitchell suddenly showed up on video. He, Brian Lee, and Slash, yes, that Brian Lee, had Julio and Alexis tied to chairs and gagged. Mitchell challenged Raven to try to find him. And to be fair, the Fairgrounds arena is pretty small, so it shouldn't be that hard to find him. And Mitchell had lit a kendo stick on fire Brian Lee, I guess, did to, torment Julio and Alexis. So the story here is that Raven, I guess, has a soul now because he doesn't just care for himself, he cares for his lackeys.
Okay. I kind of get the humanization of Raven, but I don't like it. It's antithesis to his entire character.
Well,
and can we just lump the other Raven segment into this one?
Why the hell not? So, Scott, after the next match, Scott Hudson has magically found Raven. Scott Hudson had found Raven, who had magically found where the new church was. However, since nobody was there, not even any charred bodies, they apparently somehow further kidnapped Julio and Alexis and dragged them to the ring. I would have loved to see how the hell that even played out, but they get dragged to the ring where they're still bound and gagged. Mitchell's promising them real pain and real agony. Raven runs out to help his friends, and it turns out last week wasn't Brian Lee's last show, just his last match. Raven went for the DDT on Mitchell when Douglas ran in to help. We got a 3-on-1 on Raven. Julio got himself unbound and then promptly got laid out by Brian Lee. And I thought Amazing Red got buried on this show sometimes. New Church and Douglas put Raven in the body bag, which magically reappeared at ringside. Anything else you want to add to this match or this angle?
Raven's an idiot.
Any particular reason?
Like, it's 3-on-1. He rushes the ring unarmed with something, not even a chair. Like, you're going up against megalomaniacs in that ring. Bring a chair. Bring a kendo stick on fire. Hell, see if New Jack Scythe is running around somewhere.
I like to think New Jack would take his knives home with him.
I mean, he could use them to scare the living shit straight out of teenagers on the Maury Povich show. Yes, that happened.
Well, rewinding 10 minutes, after Raven went running and looking for his friends, it was not important to find out what happened next. What was important was Scott Hudson interviewing Larry Zbyszko, because Larry Zbyszko is going to wrestle Kid Cash tonight. And he said that tonight we're going to see Kid Cash go, and that's when Hudson decided that he had to go find Raven. That led us to our next match, which was Kid Cash versus Larry Zbyszko, a real match if there ever was one. The match
question,
started
did you
with...
see... Hold on. Did you watch the last week's match with Ricky Morton?
Did I watch last week's match with Ricky Morton? Yes, we talked about it here on the program.
Good, you saw this match.
So the match started with the Zbyszko stall. Despite the fact that they did not even touch, Cash tried to claim Zbyszko pulled the tights. Now, Tenay was busy talking about the pending arson case to make a smart alecky comment about it, so I did it for him. Cash tried getting into referee Rudy Charles's face, and I want you to remember what I'm going to say here in about 5 minutes. Kid Cash got in Rudy Charles's face and slapped Charles, so Charles slapped him right back. Just remember that. The finish saw Zbyszko go for Canadian backbreaker when Abyss ran in and accidentally squished Cash. The referee, instead of wondering what the 6'8", 350-pound monster was doing to the 51-year-old man, checked on Kid Cash and did not even question the loud banging the ring made seconds later when Abyss gave Larry the black hole slam. Shouldn't the referee be worried at all that an older man has suddenly fallen unconscious? Anyway, Cash won. This could have been worse. 2.0 out of 10.
Exactly what I gave it, and I'll give you the line that I put for it. It's essentially the same match as last week, except without the student-teacher dynamic, and a bit slower, and worse. So 2.0 out of 10. And by the way, spoiler alert, folks, next week it's gonna get worse, and it's very sad.
We had another Mad Mikey video package. He was upset that the tall guy he was playing basketball with was just holding the ball over his head. Stuff like that is why we had to institute a shot clock, ladies and gentlemen. Then the TNA offices. Did you notice he parked outside the TNA offices and was trying to call in and they weren't answering his call? So he went inside the TNA offices and beat up the receptionist.
At least it's entertaining.
Okay.
Bad Mikey's bad. He beats up people that make him bad. That's fine.
Scott Hudson, who's now hanging out with main event Glenn Gilberti, Simon Diamond, and Johnny Swinger, who just happened to be in the same place that that Jim Mitchell was holding Julio and Alexis. Gilberti called
They
James
must
Storm
have
a
a timeshare
bastard.
or something.
Gilberti called James Storm a bastard and challenged AMW to come get their title belts. Simon said they took the belts because they're the best tag team. Swinger tried saying something, but got attacked by AMW, and AMW promptly got their asses kicked. AMW made their comeback, and we fought into the arena and into the ring. Gilberti hit them with a championship belt and the straps from earlier that had magically reappeared, and the heels worked over the faces. Black shirt security ran in and did nothing before Gilberti threw the tag belts onto AMW, and they left. So ultimately, what was the point of this? We had already seen Simon and Swinger get the heat on AMW, so we could continue the feud to next week. However, now we need more heat. And I wrote, we are less than an hour into this fucking show.
It's pretty dire, and the reason why they did it is kind of worth the problem that it caused. You'll find out next week. Now, this next segment should have been good. I repeat, should have been good in my eyes.
It is
the Sabin Kazarian feud. Yeah.
X Division champion Chris Sabin versus Frankie Kazarian.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this should have been good. The package was good.
Here's the fucking issue. And if somebody could explain to me why this is the only feud on the show where the referees care about enforcing the rules, I'd love to fucking hear it. Because they literally showed footage of last week when Kazarian was the referee and laid out Chris Sabin, and that led to Rudy Charles, who did not approve of these shenanigans, running down and stopping Kazarian from counting because a referee shouldn't be getting involved in the match. Keep in mind that about 20 minutes earlier on this show, I saw Rudy Charles slap one of the wrestlers, and no one said or did anything.
We have a statement from Chicago Sports Radio. Rudy Charles, who you crapping? That is act of verbal hypocrisy right there. It is the essence of it. Rudy enforces the rules, saying they should be enforced. Rudy breaks his own rules not 1 week after doing it. And that is going to play a big part in why Sabin versus Kazarian tonight, I hate to say it, was not good.
So these two have great chemistry. Sabin German suplex Kazarian into the turnbuckles, and some fans chant "Hail Sabin." Sabin goes for a catatonic, but Kazarian turns that into a crucifix. We didn't see it, but I assume Chris Harris was watching backstage and nodded approvingly. Kazarian did an electric chair drop off the middle rope for a really close 2 count. Referee Mike Posey got bumped, and Sabin went to grab the title belt, knocking Kazarian out with it and getting the pin. After the match, Andrew Thomas came down and said Sabin used the championship belt, thus the match must be restarted. Why would it be restarted? Shouldn't it be a disqualification and a title change? So this led to Mike Posey and Andrew Thomas, the referees, arguing with each other on the floor. While that happened, Kazarian hit the Wave of the Future in the ring to get the pin and to theoretically win the title. Except he didn't, because Posey and Thomas continued to argue, so Rudy Charles ran down, grabbed the belt and said that he was going to take the belt to Eric Watts to get this matter taken care of. Someone tell these fucking referees that they are not, no one's paying to watch them. Further proof, by the way, on this show that we cannot have nice things. And again, there is literally interference and/or rule breaking, blatant rule breaking in front of the referee in every fucking match in TNA, and nobody cares about it except in this one for some stupid reason. Earth to Vince Russo, if you're going to do this angle where, you keep screwing Kazarian for one reason or another, you need to make sure the rules are followed in the other matches and there's no bullshit, because then you ask why aren't, referees all running down to reverse the decision in every fucking match. It ain't that fucking hard.
No, it's not. What did you give it?
4.5 out of 10.
I gave it a 5. That's good enough. So I want to talk about the 3 Alive Crew bits. They've run the gamut.
Of course you do.
I mean, let's be honest. All that's left is segments until the cage match because they're setting up the cage right now. So originally they had some technical issues, but they got them fixed, and we have the segment. 3 Alive Crew's segments have ran the gamut for being honestly pretty funny. I think the Interrogators one was the funniest segment they did. And they've been also pretty bad, like BG in the Hood. And now we get BG at home in a trailer park where he supposedly lives. Okay. So K-Dog and Truth are seeing a guy fixing his car, asking where BG is. Turns out he's a bit of a perv. BG's fishing in the creek and cleaning his carburetor at the same time that he uses for his bong. I guess that's funny. However, it is kind of worth it when near the tail end, R-Truth runs and beats up the perv. Conan looks like white trash with a pretty cheap Iowa sound system that you'd find in the trade-in boxes at Shop T Drop. I showed you the photo of Conan as white trash, and you said, quote, "Oh, good Lord."
And it was even dumber in real life than it was in picture form.
Yep. It was really stupid.
And by the way, the guy wasn't just a pervert. The guy was gay. He was fondling himself while watching them. He was stroking a telephone pole like it was a giant penis. That's what this thing needs. We need to hit every annoying stereotype that we can. Here's the fucking positive. At least they clued the fucking guy in this time. And it wasn't like the last time, when BG was asking black guys whether or not they were carrying guns.
I mean, at least the bar segment last week was decent. I mean, they clued him in.
Yeah, no. And they're now going to be wrestling again, and I can't say them wrestling is going to be any better. But we'll get to that. Now I want you to listen to the following 5 words I'm about to say. As they assembled the cage. Now, with that in mind, let's move on with the show. So Christopher Daniels is in the crowd cutting a promo, and Christopher Daniels has apparently never cut a promo in the crowd before, and at one point he was thrown off. However, the point of the promo was him saying that tradition will no longer spread like a cancer, and his mission is to remove all the suffering from the fans. Last week, he cast the first stone at Tradition's #1 follower, Jeff Jarrett. Daniels said they've been in the darkness for so long they are afraid of the light that he brings them. He followed Tradition for 9 years, and it apparently didn't get him anything. He hopes he opened at least one mind today, because then tomorrow the fight against Tradition will be that much easier. He asked who will embrace Metamorphosis, and then cut a promo on individual fans. A plant threw a soda on Daniels, so Daniels kicked his ass. Jeff Jarrett suddenly appeared, and Daniels fled. So now Jarrett cut a promo and said that we aren't having a cage match until Daniels comes out for a fight, because Jarrett got into the ring while they were putting up the cage. Daniels didn't return right away, so red shirt security came down, and Jarrett tried baiting them with chairs. The black shirts got involved, and Jarrett didn't threaten them with assault. And people are like, oh, the red shirts are biased against Jarrett. Well, Jarrett keeps trying to assault them. That's why they might be biased against this bastard. Anywho, so the red shirts and black shirts argued. Daniels returned to start fighting. The red shirts saying Jarrett off when he got the advantage. So Daniels kicked Jarrett low and gave Jarrett a roll of the dice. I thought this is a much better angle than the one they do next week, because next week is just, in my opinion, burial is a strong word, but Daniels is made to look like a joke next week. Spoiler alert for next week.
Yeah, that's pretty much the case. I have a decent line written down that I wanted to throw at you.
Don't throw things at me. They hurt.
Near the end, a fan rejects the sermon, throws a $5 soda on Daniels, and then gets beat up by Daniels until St. Jeffrey...
You don't think that they actually charge $5 for a soda here in TNA, do you? Like
Yes.
that's almost the price of a fucking ticket that they couldn't sell. I'm gonna bet the soda cost maybe, especially 2002. I'm gonna bet it cost maybe $2.
All right, $2.
Anyway, go ahead.
Beat up Daniels until St. Jeffrey of Traditious makes the save.
Uh-huh.
Daniels flees, but Daniels flees the lion's den, but Jeffrey of Traditious enters the cage of combat. All right, that's enough. And then it's just repeating what you just said.
All right. So next week, Eric Watts will have an update on the status of the X Division title. 3 Live Crew will return to the Asylum to have a match because, again, Explosion doesn't count.
Nope.
Raven will wrestle Shane Douglas. And then America's Most Wanted stormed down. We haven't had this in a few weeks. I guess it's their turn to announce a match without anybody having to accept the challenge. But AMW informs us that next week we're going to have a 6-man tag with AMW with a partner that we'll explain in a second against Simon, Swinger, and Gilberti. AMW's partner will be a returning Dusty Rhodes. Now, I did think for a second that they were going to do the mystery partner gimmick next week because, smart fans are the only people buying these TNA pay-per-views. And smart fans know around this time that there is a deal with Sting for him to come in at some point, and they want him to come in this month, which, spoiler alert, he doesn't. But the point is, they want Sting to come in this month for another match, and I figured they may just say, oh, there's a mystery partner next week to, try to trick people into thinking it's going to be Sting, which of course would just piss people off. But hey, they did a smart thing here. They told you who it was. It's not going to sell another buy because I don't think anybody's going to give a shit. But hey, they told you.
Learning.
What does it say about the rest of the roster that they had to go bring in the 50-plus-year-old man who last had a match on the show in March?
He's probably one of the few people that AMW can trust right now.
which, by the way, spoiler alert, he does not turn heel next week, but there is that part of me that's like half expecting Dipshit to turn him heel at some point.
I think Rhodes got gun shy about turning heel after remember when he turned heel against Larry Zbyszko and joined up with Scott Hall and Kevin Nash?
Yep, and then he forgot he was in the NWO after a while.
For the best, because yeah, it was bad.
So now you might think it might be time for the main event. It is not time for the main event. Instead, we get a pre-tape promo from earlier in the day where Mike Tenay was sitting in the ring with AJ Styles and Vince Russo. Tenay wants to know why AJ would associate himself with Russo. AJ asked, why not? AJ said he didn't stab D'Lo in the back. He didn't learn anything from D'Lo. Maybe D'Lo learned something from him. Maybe D'Lo needed to learn that he needs to be friends with the right people. AJ laughed at the idea of Russo needing to be handcuffed at ringside, saying Russo will be his inspiration. Tenay went off on AJ for having a relationship with Russo. Russo had been silent the whole time, whispered to AJ that it was time to go. Russo got in Tenay's face and told him to say whatever he had to say to his face, because apparently they have not yet learned that Mike Tenay has no qualms about telling these people exactly what they think about them. And Tenay goes off on Russo. I thought they learned their lesson. Remember, like 6 months ago, when they kept booking those half unscripted promos with Mike Tenay and people, and because they were going to teach Tenay a lesson, and he'd keep schooling the hell out of them. I thought they learned their lesson, but they didn't. And Russo screamed that Jeff Jarrett dug his own hole, and Tenay needs to pay AJ the proper respect.
And then we get D'Lo's promo, which was a whole lot of nothing.
You have no thoughts on AJ's promo?
That was fine. I mean, like, we know during this time period, AJ still wasn't the best talker. I mean, he's still not he's became a good talker later on. Like, I want to say when he did the Lone Wolf AJ Styles stuff from 2012, 2013. But yeah, this was not great.
By the way, I would like to point out that City Councilman Jeremy Jam, he had a podcast with Megan Morant, and in the background, he has an Aja Kong action figure. So we'll give City Councilman Jeremy Jam half of a point there. So from there we go to another pre-tape promo, as you mentioned. This one with Scott Hudson talking to D'Lo Brown. D'Lo said tonight is the night he shines. This has gone past business and is now personal. D'Lo said he won't dance with Vince Russo, not now, not in a million years. And just a reminder, while he's ranting about this, that in March, he got a world title match with the promise where if he won, he would join SCX and Vince Russo. But you're supposed to forget about that because that didn't happen.
Or they realize that, you know what, that sucked. We move on to something else.
The one thing they finally realized sucked in this company? Jesus Christ, there's a pretty damn high bar. Shit, that sucks.
I mean, they don't reference the Dub Cup, so that's something.
Yes, but every time we see Dusty, he makes sure to mention about a midget beaten off in a trash can.
Well, he did.
Speaking of Dusty, by the way, there's a Street Profits promo on right now, and they're standing in front of the truck, which is Dusty Rhodes' big ass face on it. So, you know, WWE not only does WWE listen to the show, they know what time we're doing these shows because they made sure that I'm staring at Dusty's giant face while talking about Dusty. By the way, D'Lo said this might be his last shot at the world title, so tonight needed to be his night. And yeah, we'll get to that here in a minute. But okay, so it's finally time. NWA World Heavyweight Champion AJ Styles with Vince Russo versus D'Lo Brown in a cage match. Sonny Siaki, Trinity, and the Legend are all banned from ringside, and Eric Watts is handcuffed to Russo at ringside. Now, do you remember, as I wrote 575 words ago, but about 5 to 10 minutes ago when I said as they assembled the cage?
Yeah.
26 real life minutes passed between them beginning to put the cage together and the bell ringing.
That is not
26
good.
minutes. And here's the thing. Dave in the Observer tried to say, well, there was an issue putting the cage together, so they had to run this and run that. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, because it's not like, you know, it's not like this was a live interview with AJ, Tenay, and Russo. It wasn't like it was a live interview with D'Lo and Scott Hudson. These were all pre-tapes that were going to be inserted into this show. They did not, like, maybe there was an issue putting the cage together, but that is not why there was a near 30-minute break to, before this match got started.
I mean, you could have had who's feuding right now of importance. I don't know. Maybe you could have Raven and Douglas brawl again. Who knows?
No, we've had enough brawling. You could have had Raven cut a promo or something, but I mean, at this point though, nearly, like, it's funny because they had started moving up the cage and I looked at the clock. I'm like, Jesus Christ, there's almost a full fucking hour left in the show. It was like 40 minutes. And I'm like, damn, we're gonna get some time for this match. Because if you remember, what if I said now about 12 times? There was an AJ Styles D'Lo Brown match that TNA put up for free in early 2004 that I marked the fuck out for, and I wanted to see more. And then I had yet to see that match, and I couldn't remember what match that was. And we thought maybe it was this cage match. Well, after watching this cage match, I think we can assume that 19-year-old Arya in 2004 was just begging for something that wasn't that shitty ass WWE booking at the time. And so one random AJ Styles D'Lo Brown match, whatever one it was, because at this point I'd have no fucking idea, that popped me a lot. And I can't even tell you what one it was, because watching this match, maybe it was this match, maybe it wasn't, but it's not like this match was a classic or anything. Watts started the match by leading the crowd in a chant of Russo sucks. So happy to see we're getting the crowd to be interested in the wrestlers. D'Lo tried to slingshot AJ into the cage, but AJ instead landed on the ropes and did a springboard backwards onto Brown, which was quite impressive. D'Lo ragdolled AJ into the cage before raking AJ's face into the cage, bloodying him up. And this may have been the first time AJ's bladed in TNA. I don't remember him blading on this show before. Do you?
No, not really. Maybe he got cut. I know he got cut open hard way a couple of times.
Well, he was wearing the Crimson Mask here, people. Outside the ring, Watts kept dragging Russo away anytime Russo tried to give Styles advice. D'Lo turned a Styles Clash into an Alabama Slam and then used a Frog Splash, but AJ barely got his shoulder up. Styles used a power bomb off the ropes and a Styles Clash for a 2 count of his own. D'Lo used a spine buster and climbed to the top of the cage. And then, whatever dipshit put this finish together, and I think we're going to be talking about the dipshit that put this finish together, he doesn't have a fucking brain. And I am sure he went to I have no doubt in my mind that he went to D'Lo Brown and was basically like, hey, I've got this idea for a finish. What do you say? And D'Lo, wanting to be a team player, wanting to, do what he can, didn't have a problem with it. But I want to say, this cage, and, wrestling is prone to exaggeration, but I would say this cage is a legitimate 10 feet high, 10 feet off the ring. Because, like, D'Lo was fucking up there. And I get it's the fairgrounds. It's not a huge arena. It's not a tall arena. But, like, he got to the top of the cage and he's in the lighting rig. Like, really. And then outside the ring, Russo throws powder into Eric Watts' face. And ultimately, what was the point of that? Like, and you can't say, oh, it's to build it to this spot. No, no, no. If this is a shoot, bro, like Vince Russo likes to say, bro, what was Vince Russo getting out of throwing powder into Eric Watts' face?
I have no idea. I mean, maybe just to blind Watts and slide something into AJ, like a bat or something, but a bat wouldn't fit through the cage. Let's.
But he also didn't even have a bat with him. But so, but anyway, like, either way. So what happened was that Eric Watts charged at D'Lo, I'm sorry, not charged at D'Lo, charged at Vince Russo and tackled Russo into the cage. Yes, the same cage that D'Lo Brown is still standing on top of. And so D'Lo crashed and burned onto the mat from 10 feet up in the air. Why would Watts do that?
Because Watts is an idiot. And this is the start of your typical Eric Watts decision. It's a good decision. It's supposed to set up things straight, but inevitably he did something to fuck it up. Whether it be on purpose or by accident. This one happened to be accident. And AJ covers for the win. This is the storyline for me for this show. It was supposed to be good. We've had, 4 matches that were supposed to be good, or at the very least watchable. And it went.
There was a 3 matches they booked last week: the AMW Simon Swinger, Sabin Kazarian, and this match. And remember last week we were like, holy shit, this sounds like a can't miss show. But of course we said you have to basically temper your expectations with this show because everything that sounds good ends up sucking. And essentially that's what happened here.
The match itself was fine, but we don't settle for fine.
By the way, of all that, I will say this. The thing that made the most sense was that all AJ had to do was put his hand over D'Lo. I would have been fucking pissed if either A, D'Lo kicked out, or AJ would have picked him up to give him his finish. So, say what you want, but they actually came up with, if they were going to do a stupid thing like this, the right finish after that was AJ puts his hand over D'Lo for the pin. So
5 out of 10, I guess.
What did you give it?
5 out of 10.
5, yeah, that's what I gave it. And then after the match, Vince Russo has been involved intimately in wrestling now for over 6 years. Because, he started on the creative team in March of '97 in the WWF. He spent 2.5 years there. He spent about a year in WCW. He's been here pretty much since the beginning. So that by itself is about 4.5 years of being involved in the writing and booking of television. How many fucking times has this show gone off the air with Russo in the middle of either a promo or an angle?
Too many.
That's what happened here. And he starts cutting a promo, and like ultimately, and we know what happens next week because we already watched the show, but he starts talking about who AJ's next challenger is going to be, and I doubt they knew what was going to be the finish. So I doubt that, spoiler alert, Low Ki is going to wrestle AJ Styles next week. I doubt that there's going to be anything with Low Ki on this show because Low Ki is in Japan right now. But the show just went off the air for what feels like at least the 10th time with Russo in the middle of yapping away.
So the streak ends at 3, ladies and gentlemen. And will they ever get back to that type of length once again? Well, we'll find out soon enough. Anyway.
Well, like I said, I didn't even think it was a bad show. I just thought, in comparison to the last couple of weeks, it was very meh. So for the final ratings here, match quality averaged out at a 4.4. And without sitting here and doing your match averages, we pretty much gave pretty much everything the exact same fucking score here. Overall enjoyment. I gave overall enjoyment a 4.5 out of 10. I did not hate this show, but there was definitely a drop off between the last few shows and this show. No one could follow AMW's match, and that should have been obvious when the rest of the card got booked and laid out. Like they really shouldn't have been the opener. Like I would say they should have been the match that led into the cage match. They should have been the first hour main event or the halfway thing. And they could have had the 4-way X Division match be the opener. They could have put the Sabin Kazarian match before the AMW match, and it would have flowed a bit better than it did.
Yep.
Future build 3.0 out of 10. Because like I said, we gave it a decent high rating last week for future build when we were, excited for it. This next week's show, they've not booked anything. They haven't announced anything to be excited for. So I gave it a 3.0 out of 10. And that gives us an overall rating of a 3.97.
Yikes.
Yes. What say you about this show?
I'll reiterate it again. It should have been good. The card on paper, as we talked about last week, we were excited for it. But every stupid decision that could have been made got made. And
this is why you don't wrestle on paper, I guess.
Yeah. And if you wrestled on paper, then Tom McGee would have been a 5-time WWF champion.
It's still amazing to me. It is seriously amazing to me still that, like, in a world where all you needed was a good body, nobody ever booked Tom McGee again. Like, he didn't go to USWA where Jerry Lawler made a career and made a fortune off of working with stiffs. He didn't go to WCW when literally they were signing anybody that used to work for WWE. They just he just vanished. And I know he had a little bit of a run in New Japan, but I'm not really counting that, even though it counts. Anyway, that's gonna do it for this week's show. Any other final thoughts about this show before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I have it written down here. Daniels could talk for 5 minutes about nothing and how you want to see his matchup against nothing and get nothing over, and will sell tickets to see him versus nothing.
They're trying to do a SummerSlam by the numbers video, and like none of these numbers on top of the people they're showing them on make sense. Like they showed Tiffany Stratton and put up 17-0. What does that mean? Like I'm sure I could have unmuted it and found out what the hell that meant, but nothing about Tiffany Stratton should mean 17-0. And if you say that's her record in 2025, I'm more disgusted that she only wrestled 17 matches. And before I say, well, in AEW, some people only wrestled 7, I'm like, that doesn't make it okay. Just saying here, people. Anyway, but that's going to do it for this week's show. Join us next week. We're still going to be talking about SummerSlam from last week. But, and thank you all for listening. We'll talk to you all again in 7 days.
Ooga booga booga.